हेलो गाइस। आज हम पूरा बैठ के करेंगे थ्री गिनीज बाय वर्जीनिया वुल्फ का सेकेंडरी मटेरियल्स रीड। ठीक है। सो विद द ब्लेसिंग्स ऑफ द फर्स्ट पूर्णिमा ऑफ 2026 एंड ऑफ माय डियर मून एंड माय यूनिवर्स, लेट्स बिगिन। टाइमर सेट कर देते हैं। Okay, so the first material which we are tackling today is titled The Representation of Gender Roles and Its Correlation with Fascism in Virginia Woolf's The Mark on the Wall and Three Guineas by Maria Tornero Garcia. So the representation of gender roles and its correlation with fascism in Virginia Woolf's The Mark on the Wall and the Three Guineas. We'll particularly focus on the Three Guineas, okay? So what is it about? This academic paper argues one central idea. Virginia Woolf believed that patriarchy and fascism work in the same way. Both rely on authority, hierarchy, blind obedience and suppression of difference, especially women. Okay, so this paper, The Representation of Gender Roles and Its Correlation with Fascism in Virginia Woolf's Three Guineas, believed, and the writer of this paper, Maria Tornero Garcia, believed that Virginia Woolf believed that patriarchy and fascism work in the same way. Both rely on authority, hierarchy, obedience and suppression of difference, especially women. Okay, Virginia Woolf believed that patriarchy and fascism work in the same way through authority, hierarchy, obedience and suppression of differences, especially women. To prove this, Garcia compares two Woolf texts: The Mark on the Wall, 1917, which is a modernist short story, and Three Guineas. Although very different in style, both texts attack the same systems of power. Virginia Woolf, Woolf's personal background we must know. Born in Victorian England in 1882, women could not attend university. She educated herself at home. She suffered sexual abuse, depression and lost trigger warning. Strongly influenced by feminism and suffrage movements, member of the Bloomsbury group, which is a group of intellectual modernists. Historical context: it is written during rise of, both of these texts, The Mark on the Wall and Three Guineas, are written during rise of European fascism, Spanish Civil War, approach of World War II. Woolf's nephew died in the Spanish Civil War, which intensified her anti-war stance. She saw fascism abroad and patriarchy at home as connected threads. So, she was a member of the Bloomsbury group, as we know, which is an intellectual modernist group. And historical context: written during rise of European fascism, Spanish Civil War, approach of World War II. Woolf's nephew died in the Spanish Civil War, which intensified her anti-war stance. She saw fascism abroad and patriarchy at home as connected threads. Okay. By Three Guineas, Woolf abandons literary politeness and writes openly against power. Our literary polite dekhiye lav nahi. Structure: why the form of Three Guineas is political itself. Woolf rejects traditional structure. Traditionally যেভাবে essay বা novel এগোয় সেটাও ভাঙছে. Rejects traditional structure. This paper explains that Woolf deliberately avoids neat, orderly writing because fascism loves order, uniformity, hierarchy. Woolf resists fascism by resisting those forms. Okay? So it explains that Woolf deliberately avoids neat, orderly writing because fascism loves order, hierarchy and uniformity. Order, hierarchy and uniformity. Woolf resists fascism by resisting those forms. Structure of the Three Guineas kibhabe? Written as three letters. Each letter answers a related question. Gemini: education, profession and war. Ideas progress step by step, not randomly. But we get to see interruptions, footnotes, digressions, which is a political resistance. Okay, so structure of Three Guineas written as three letters. Okay. Each letter answers a related question like education, profession, war. Ideas progress step by step, not randomly. হট করে war কে নিয়ে কথা বলছে না, আগে পড়াশোনা, তারপর profession, তারপর war. We see interruptions, footnotes and digressions which are acts of political resistance. Okay. Structure of the mark on the wall, stream of consciousness, circular nonlinear thinking, reflects female inner life trapped by male authority. A interruption, footnote, digression o kintu it is not just an act of political resistance, reflects the female inner life trapped by male authority. The mark, which is the snail, symbolizes hidden thought and suppressed idea. A mark on the wall. Okay, will not form major emphasis there. So form itself is resistance. Uniform writing is equal to authoritarian thinking. Neat ordered writing of follow koreni, because fascism loves the order, uniformity and hierarchy. Sheta follow koreni. She's using the form as resistance. Uniform writing represents authoritarian thinking. Now we'll talk about the major things. Private versus public space. Women are confined to home, marriage, dependence. Men dominate politics, law, church, war. Woolf shows how public institutions are male designed. Women see society from the threshold, not the center. Symbols which she used are White Talker's almanac, which is the male hierarchy, mirror or looking glass, which is the glass ceiling, wheel, religious and cultural invisibility. Bridge is the transition to public life. Okay, so women are confined to home, marriage, dependence. Home, marriage, dependence. Men dominate politics, law, church, war. Woolf shows public institutions are male designed. Women see society from the threshold, not the center. That's very important. Private versus public space. मेरे vision touch peripheral, from the threshold, not the center. In the Three Guineas, Woolf imagines women crossing the bridge, not just dreaming about it. Three Guineas Woolf actually readily imagine women crossing the bridge, and she's not just dreaming about it. The women are actually crossing the bridge. Patriarchy and militarism. This is the core argument of the paper. Woolf argues masculinity is trained to value dominance, aggression, competition. These values produce war. Key points is fascism glorifies uniform, flags, discipline, male heroism. Patriarchy does the same inside the home. Famous Woolf line is, as a woman, I want no country. As a woman, my country is the whole world. Meaning, nationalism excludes women. True peace requires global ethical thinking, not borders. Okay? So, patriarchy and militarism, this is the core argument of the paper. Woolf argues, let me highlight and then I'll come back. Okay. Woolf argues masculinity is trained to value dominance, aggression, competition. Masculinity is trained to value aggression, competition, dominance. Male value is masculinity is trained to value aggression, competition and discipline. Dominance actually. Masculinity is trained to value dominance, aggression and competition. These same values produce war. Key points as fascism glorifies uniforms, flags, discipline, male heroism, uniforms, flag, discipline, male heroism. Patriarchy does the same but inside the home. Famous Woolf line is, as a woman, I want no country. As a woman, my country is the whole world. Meaning, country-specific nationalism always exclude women. True peace requires global ethical thinking, not borders. True peace requires global ethical thinking, not borders. She gives the Antigone example. Antigone versus Creon is the moral law versus state law. Creon is the dictator and Antigone is the feminist resistance. I am so sorry for the interruption, okay? So, as a woman, I want no country. As a woman, my country is the whole world. Meaning, nationalism excludes women. true peace requires global ethical thinking, not borders. Woolf uses Antigone as example, Antigone versus Creon as moral laws versus state law. Creon is the dictator and Antigone is the feminine resistance. এই পার্টটা আরেকবার পড়বো. Woolf argues that masculinity is trained to value dominance, aggression, competition. These are the values which produces war. Key points as fascism glorifies uniforms, flags, male heroism and discipline. Patriarchy does the same inside the home. As a woman, I want no country. As a woman, my country is the whole world. Meaning, nationalism excludes women. True peace requires global ethical thinking, not borders. Woolf uses myth to show tyranny is ancient, not new. Kon myth? Antigone versus Creon. Okay. We'll come to the point 4.3. Education system. Keno juddho continue hocche. In 3 Guineas, Woolf believes education trains obedience. Boys are trained to rule, girls are trained to serve. Key ideas are women funded men's education through sacrifice. So Arthur's education fund. Education teaches nationalism and war pride. Critical thinking is discouraged, and Woolf proposes an education system which is based on psychology, empathy, and questioning authority. Reading many voices, not one truth. And this applies to literature too. Canon, like Shakespeare, classics, excludes women. Woolf demands new voices and notun form. So through education also, Woolf believes education trains obedience. এই পার্টটা আমাদের আরো ভালো করে পড়া দরকার আছে, ঠিক আছে? Woolf argues education কি করছে? ট্রেন করছে obedience কে. Boys, education trains obedience. Boys are trained to rule. Girls are trained to serve. Women funded men's education through sacrifice. Education teaches nationalism and war pride. Critical thinking is discouraged. Woolf proposes education based on psychology, empathy, questioning authority, reading many voices, not declaring one male voice as the truth. This applies to literature too, because canonical texts like Shakespeare and the classics, they exclude women, and Woolf demands new voices and new forms, okay? Education trains obedience. Boys are trained to rule. Girls are trained to serve. Key ideas are women fund men's education through sacrifice. Education teaches nationalism and war pride. Critical thinking is discouraged. Woolf proposes education based on psychology, empathy, questioning authority, reading many voices, not just one truth. This is applicable to literature too, where canonical texts comprising Shakespeare and other classics exclude women. Woolf demands new voices and new forms. Point number 4.4. Objective versus subjective knowledge. Traditional thinking bole objective পড়াশোনা is male, rational, superior, and subjective পড়াশোনা মানে হচ্ছে female, emotional, inferior. Woolf এইটাকে রিভার্স করছে. In 3 Guineas, she uses photos, statistics, facts, but shows they reflect male power. ঠিক আছে? এই যে ফটো ইউজ করছে, স্ট্যাটিস্টিক ইউজ করছে, ফ্যাক্টস ইউজ করছে, এগুলো একটা সাবজেক্টিভ পয়েন্ট হয়ে যাচ্ছে, রাইট? যেটা ট্রেডিশনাল থিঙ্কিং বলছে যে ইটস ফিমেল, ইটস ইমোশনাল, দে আর উইক, কিন্তু ও সেটাকে সেইগুলোকে ইউজ করছে টু রিফ্লেক্ট মেল পাওয়ার, ঠিক আছে? তো দিস ইজ ভেরি ফানি. Objective versus subjective knowledge. Traditional thinking says that objective knowledge comprises male, okay, factual thinking, not factual thinking, rational thinking, male, rational, superior, and subjective পড়াশোনা হচ্ছে female, emotional, inferior. Woolf reverses this. In 3 Guineas, she uses photos, statistics, facts, but they reflect male power. And the mark of the wall, এটা পড়ার দরকার নেই. Mark of the wall we don't require here. ঠিক আছে? Woolf claims so-called objectivity is just male dominance pretending to be neutral. ও বলছে যে এই যে so-called objectivity যেটাকে তোমরা male dominance হিসেবে বলছো, rational, superior, male, right? It is just pretending to be, neutral. It is just for domination. যাতে মেলরা ডমিনেট করতে পারে, তাই জন্য তোমরা অবজেক্টিভ থিঙ্কিংকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে যাচ্ছ। এটা আমি আরেকটু ডিপে পড়বো। This is from the first article, okay, by Garcia. So I got this part where Virginia Woolf is talking about traditional versus, traditional thinking of objective learning versus subjective learning. And she uses subjective learning as in use of photos, statistics and logics, facts, which are apparently subjective, to prove that the subjective thinking is actually also a reflection of male power. So a double irony going on. But how come statistics and facts are becoming subjective? I'm confused here. It's good to be confused. Okay, first what objective and subjective actually mean করছে, traditional common sense meaning এ objective হচ্ছে facts, statistics, photographs, laws, numbers assumed to be neutral and truthful. Subjective হচ্ছে feelings, emotions, personal experience assumed to be biased and unreliable. This hierarchy টা কিন্তু gendered. Objective হচ্ছে masculine, valued. Subjective মানে feminine, dismissed. This is the thinking Woolf is attacking. Woolf's key move: she does not say facts are emotional. She says something much subtler. Facts are not neutral just because they look factual. Facts neutral hoy na, even though they look neutral. Okay, even though they look factual. This is the crucial shifts. Why statistics and facts become subjective in Woolf's argument. Woolf দেখাচ্ছে that facts are produced by people in power. Ask these questions. Woolf is asking them implicitly. কে কালেক্ট করছে স্ট্যাটিস্টিক্স গুলো, কে ডিসাইড করছে what is being counted, who writes the laws, who takes the photographs, who is excluded from the data. The answer historically is men in power. So the facts may be accurate, but they are selective, framed, institutional and interested. That makes them not neutral even if they are numerical. Woolf uses photographs of war victims, statistics about education, professions, money, historical documents use করছে, official records use করছে. These are supposed to be the most objective forms of evidence, but Woolf shows these objective materials exist within a system that systematically exclude women. So they reflect male priorities, male fears and male power. So the form looks objective, the origin is patriarchal and the perspective is limited. That is why critics like Garcia say objectivity itself is revealed as a masculine construction. Where the subjective label comes in, Woolf does not say facts are emotional. She says facts are situated, meaning they come from a position, right? কোথাও থেকে তো আসতে হবে. That position has interests. Those interests shape what counts as truth. This is what modern theory later calls situated knowledge and partial objectivity. Woolf is doing this before theory even existed. The double irony: Woolf uses objective tools to prove that objectivity is not neutral. Step by step. Patriarchy bolche women are emotional, men are rational. ঠিক আছে? Woolf replies as fine, I will use your rational tools. She uses facts, statistics, photographs, documents. Then she shows these tools expose male violence, right? War propaganda, male domination propaganda, male obsession with power and war. Result: objective collapses into exposure and masculine rationality indicts itself. This is why critics call her method strategic, not emotional. So are facts subjective in Woolf? No, not in the lazy sense. They are politically located, historically produced, institutionally framed. Politically located, historically produced, politically located, historically produced and institutionally framed. Politically located, historically produced and institutionally framed. That is different from saying facts are fake. Woolf is saying facts are not innocent. ওই যেমনি বলেছিল careers are not innocent. This is how Woolf avoids being dismissed as emotional, turns patriarchal logic against itself, proves that war is produced by the same institutions that produce rational authority. Fact to diche. So when Garcia says Woolf shows objective knowledge as subjective, what is really meant is Woolf reveals what is objective is actually a reflection of male power, not universal truth. So এটা আমরা খুব ইজিলি বুঝে গেছি, তাই তো? এইটা আমি জাস্ট একটু ছোট করে তোমাদের বুঝিয়ে রাখি। ট্রেডিশনাল থিঙ্কিং বলছে অবজেক্টিভ পড়াশোনা বা অবজেক্টিভ পয়েন্ট অফ ভিউ প্রুভ করছে মেল পয়েন্ট অফ ভিউকে ভেরি র্যাশনাল, ইটস নট ইররেশনাল, ঠিক আছে, সুপিরিয়র। আর ওদিকে সাবজেক্টিভ চিন্তা ভাবনা হচ্ছে ইমোশনাল মেয়েদের জন্য অ্যান্ড ভেরি উইক। এবার এখানে উলফ বলছে ঠিক আছে, আমি তোমাদের গেমেই তোমাদের মারবো। কিভাবে মারবো? ও নিজের বই 3 Guineas-এ ফটো ইউজ করেছে, স্ট্যাটিস্টিক্স ইউজ করেছে, লজিস্টিক্স ইউজ করেছে, ফ্যাক্ট ইউজ করেছে অ্যাবাউট war and everything, and she says that these are not neutral, universal সত্যি কথা এরা বলছে না। কেন বলছে না? কারণ এই so-called stats, so-called logistics, so-called photographs কারা তুলছে, কোত্থেকে আসছে? লোকেদের কাছ থেকে আসছে, মেল ইন পাওয়ার যারা ওইগুলোকে তৈরি করেছে ফর দেয়ার ইন্টারেস্ট, ঠিক আছে? তো যেটা ওদের ইন্টারেস্ট সেটা তো উইমেনদের ইন্টারেস্ট হতে পারে না, বা ওরা যাদের গলা সাপ্রেস করছে তাদের তো ইন্টারেস্ট হতে পারে না। সো ওই জন্য ও বলছে যে এই যে তোমরা অবজেক্টিভ ইজ র্যাশনাল, অবজেক্টিভ ইজ সুপিরিয়র বলছো, হাউ ক্যান ইট বি সুপিরিয়র when it is not neutral, it is emotional? So subjectivity in objectivity, I guess I was able to make it clear. Politically placed, historically produced and institutionally frame হচ্ছে objectivity. So a so-called objectivity is just male dominance, ঠিক আছে? Just ছেলেরা ডমিনেট করছে, ওইটা কি ওরা দেখাচ্ছে, just male dominance pretending to be neutral. সরি গাইজ, আমার চশমা আবার ধোয়া হয়ে গেছে। Okay, now we'll talk about characters or lack of them. Female narrator আছে 3 Guineas-এ, first person voice আছে, educated man's daughter আছে, representing resistance, uses thinking, writing, refusal, মেল ফিগার্স আছে ব্যারিস্টার ইন দ্য 3 Guineas, ঠিক আছে? তো ক্যারেক্টার হচ্ছে ফিমেল ন্যারেটর, ফার্স্ট পারসন ভয়েস, এডুকেটেড ম্যানস ডটার আছে, রিপ্রেজেন্টিং রেজিস্ট্যান্স, ইউজেস থিঙ্কিং, রাইটিং, রিফিউজাল, মেল ফিগারে ব্যারিস্টার আছে ইন 3 Guineas. Okay, they talk about war, ignore women's position, dismiss female thought, okay, which symbolizes authority and impatience. কি সিম্বলাইজ করছে? অথরিটিকে অ্যান্ড ইমপেশেন্সকে। It is going to be a long journey with 3 Guineas, ঠিক আছে? So be with me, bear with me. Okay, symbolize করছে অথরিটিকে। Okay, so they talk about war, ignore women's position and dismiss female thought, symbolize authority and impatience. Symbolize authority and impatience. Men হচ্ছে action without thought and women হচ্ছে thought without power. Hits. They talk about war, ignore women's position, ignore women's position and dismiss female thought, symbolizes authority and impatience. Men is action without thought and females are thought without power. Techniques, Woolf কিভাবে লিখছে? In 3 Guineas she writes it as essay plus evidence, so evidential essay, evidence দিয়ে দিয়ে নিজে পয়েন্টস গুলো প্রুভ করছে। she uses photo, data, biography and autobiography, direct political attack করছে, satire and irony use করছে। so in 3 Guineas it's essay plus avoidance, photos, data and biography, photos, data, biography, autobiographies, direct political attack, irony and satire. Despite the differences, both her works attack authority, hierarchy and violence. Both attack authority, hierarchy and violence. Final conclusion of this paper is, the paper concludes patriarchy and fascism are structurally similar. Both silence women, both glorify power. Woolf's evolution shows from inner resistance mark to open political challenge. ওই mark on the wall হচ্ছে inner resistance to 3 Guineas, open political challenge. Women must resist by refusing imitation, by thinking must resist by thinking critically, by forming outsider communities. A society of outsider, যেটা পড়িয়েছিলাম. So, from inner resistance in Mark on the Wall to open political change in the three Guineas, women must resist by refusing imitation, by thinking critically, and by forming outsider communities. The paper concludes patriarchy and fascism are structurally similar. Both glorify power, both silence women. Both glorify power, both silence women. Patriarchy and fascism are structurally similar. Both silence women, both glorify power. Woolf's evolution shows from inner resistance to openly attacking open political challenge. Women must resist by refusing imitation, by thinking critically, and by forming outsider communities. So with this, we are done for today's video. Thank you and take care. And I am coming with many more videos. Bye bye.